Hello, fellow listeners. This is your host, Daniel Flores, back with another episode of Celsius, where we deal with the cold hard facts of true crime. Today we have the very recent case of Chris Watts and the murder of his family. This case was requested by fans for me to review and see what I think of what might have happened and caused for a family man to become a killer. For those that are new and unfamiliar with the case, Chris Watts was a former oil worker who lived with his wife Shannon and their two daughters, Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3. In a suburban neighborhood in Frederick, Colorado, they had a picture-perfect life on the surface, with Shannon documenting their every moment on social media, broadcasting it to the world. However, beneath this curtain of false joy, tensions were brewing in their marriage. Shannon, who was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child, Nico, had recently returned from a business trip to Arizona where she was dropped off at her home by her friend Nicole Atkinson. On the morning of August 13, 2018, Shannon and the girls were reported missing after she failed to show up for a doctor's appointment and missed a business flight. The police were called to do a wellness check on the family residence, and Chris Watts was later called to the home where he let officers in and feigned his discovery of a missing family. He later made public pleas for their safe return on the news outlets, claiming he had no idea where they were. As the investigation unfolded, holes in Chris's story began to emerge. Text messages between the husband and the wife were lackluster of passion and love. Shannon's texts to her friends showed that she was being alienated from the affection of her husband and cried to herself to sleep at night. Suspicions rose as the home was left in an immaculate state after the alleged disappearance of the family. Chris volunteered to do a body craft, which he later failed. He confessed to killing his wife after witnessing her strangle their daughters. Later, the truth surfaced. He had admitted to murdering all 3 members of his family. Watts pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including first-degree murder, and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The following questions will be fans' most requested questions that I will answer. Question: what are my chosen psychology theories to understand Chris Watts' behavior, and what led him to such horrible actions? 3 major theories come to mind: attachment theory, de-individuation theory, and strain theory. One of the major theories applicable to this case will be the attachment theory, which explores how early attachment experiences can shape individuals' relationships and behaviors throughout their lives. In Chris Watts' case, an examination of his relationship with his parents, Shannon's in-laws, showed that the relationship with his parents is barely existent, in which Chris has no problems in following the wishes of his wife to cut his parents off from their family. In fact, it is noted that Chris's parents did not show up to the wedding at all when they got married. One of the main points of conflict within the case is that when Chris's mother had come to visit the family, she had brought over ice cream that one of the daughters is allergic to. This lack of communication about the child's needs shows a lack of care and neglect that may be mirrored in Chris's early life. The nature of our parental emotional bonds determine the quality of social relationships later in life. This could explain why he had a poor relationship with his wife and is emotionally distant from his children. Combine this lack of attachment with the social pressure his wife places on the family by recording all their experiences, and if it wasn't picture perfect, she demanded a redo of the moment. This can eventually take its toll on Chris. His childhood experiences with his parents could have influenced his ability to form healthy relationships with his family. He may have experienced inconsistent caregiving, causing him to develop insecure attachment patterns characterized by difficulties in communicating his children's needs. These insecure attachment patterns could contribute to his inability to cope with stressors within his marriage and family. I also want to mention another theory, the individuation theory. a process by which people feel they cannot be identified because they are disguised or assimilated within a group. Chris may have felt that he was beginning to lose his identity within his family unit. This could have resulted from always being around them and being on camera where his every move is being watched and scrutinized, if it not by his wife, then by the public on social media. To reduce this discomfort, he more than likely began having an affair where he felt more like himself away from the cameras. His mistress, Nicole Kessinger, could not be reached for further comment, as she is apparently a witness protection. He started working out more, alienating himself emotionally and having cognitive dissonance where he detached himself from the family unit to have a sense of self again. I also will add that Watts may have experienced an overload of marital and familial stress between his desire to maintain the facade of a happy family life and the reality of his dissatisfaction and resentment within his marriage. Shannon documented their perfect life on social media. Chris felt the pressure to uphold this image despite internal feelings of discontent. This discrepancy between his public persona and private emotions may have contributed to his decision to resort to extreme measures to resolve the lack of identity he experienced, in which he decided murdering his family would be a suitable permanent solution as opposed to getting a divorce. I will add that a divorce is not easy. Having gone through two myself, I have no children though, and I don't have to pay anything to my ex-wives. Nonetheless, murder is not a reasonable solution under any circumstance. A reason for Chris to resort to this is if a divorce were to occur, it would be televised on social media by Shannon creating a narrative that he will be tearing his family apart, and she expressed a lack of support and affection from her husband. Also applicable to this case is the strain theory, where crime and delinquency would occur when there is a perceived discrepancy between the values and goals cherished and held in high esteem by society and the availability of the legal means for obtaining these goals. A father and husband in the social media spotlight, controlled by his wife, with a dominating, narcissistic, and controlling personality, may have caused for Chris to have difficulty to communicate his emotions. Coupled with the blurred line of reality and perfection between on and off camera could lead to a train of thought in Chris's head that it may be difficult for him to achieve his idea of happiness in terms of privacy and publicity of their marriage and family life. Currently, divorces do favor women more than men in society, and with more footage of the wife being the perfect mother and wife, Chris being more distant, this could have led to a strain in Chris being able to be the father he really wanted to be for his children. A divorce would also mean potential financial struggle, societal shame, as he thought he would be pictured as a terrible father and husband. To mention the affair, he found a new, healthier sense of identity within that. And to keep his new life, he contemplated a divorce and thought it would be more cost-effective to annihilate his family instead of doing the legal route. So his family then became an obstacle. This could be a reason he turned to murder, to attain the goal of being with his new girlfriend, getting his identity back, and taking back control of his life. In the case of Chris Watts, these theories help explain his actions within the context of his perceived failures and frustrations resulting from marital discord and unmet societal and personal expectations. He may have felt overwhelmed by the pressure to provide for his wife and children, particularly with another child on the way. Marriage is hard. Marital conflicts combined with infidelity may have intensified feelings of resentment and inadequacy, further amplifying the strain he experienced. Unable to reconcile these challenges through legitimate means, Watts turned to violence to exert control and eliminate perceived obstacles to his personal happiness. Next question posed by viewers: what points are crucial in analyzing Watts' criminal behavior? Well, motive and behavior patterns are key here. It appears multifaceted. His motive seems to stem from factors like marital issues, financial strain, and a desire to pursue an extramarital relationship with Nicole Kessinger. Watts would have faced legal fees, child support payments, and less time with his children, social shame, and negative publicity if he decides to end his marriage through means of divorce. His inability to cope with these stressors may have led him to view his family as obstacles to his happiness and freedom, motivating him to commit the murders to resolve his perceived problems. Possibly in his mind, his wife would not pose much of a threat if she were to be dead. As for their children, there would be no workaround for him to explain the disappearance of their mother. If his children were to be alive, to ask where their mother has gone, the children pose a different threat to his happiness, or they would not recognize Nicole as their new surrogate mother if Chris were to only have killed Shannon, and would constantly question Chris about their mother. Also a possibility, they could be prone to speaking out in public saying their mother went on a vacation for an extended period. This verbiage coming out posed too much of a risk to Chris. In Chris's mind, his flawed deductive reasoning led him to kill his children as the only way to silence them from interfering with his plans for a new life. So, criminal behavior analysis involves examining the offender's behavior patterns and actions leading up to and following the crime. In the case of Chris Watts, his behavior exhibited several concerning patterns of a primary psychopath, including deceitfulness, manipulation, and a lack of empathy. Prior to the murders, Watts maintained a facade of normalcy and concern for his missing family, despite knowing their fate. His attempts to mislead investigators and the public highlight his willingness to manipulate others to conceal his crime. His lack of remorse or emotional response following the murders suggests a profound detachment from the gravity of his actions and the suffering of his family. Traits of the primary psychopath, which are selfishness and an inability to love or give affection to others. This was adequately displayed in the moment where he faked the perfect image of a husband and father on social media to give himself more credibility to his facade. He was unable to authentically show genuine empathy and love for his missing family, as he thought he would be able to murder them and then proceed to begin a new life with his mistress. Next question posed by viewers. What concepts help us understand Watts' actions? How does modus operandi apply to Watts' case? So, modus operandi, or MO, and crime scene profiling are crucial concepts here. In the case of Chris Watts, his modus operandi involved a high degree of vulnerability, which pertains to the degree to which the victim is susceptible to attack. Watts wrote in a letter during his stay in prison that the strangulation of his wife was impulsively done. He had the opportunity of their vulnerability, as he lived in close proximity to all three of his family members and was able to take out the biggest threat, his wife, and then lure his daughters into his car to the gravesite. His family trusted him, which he abused and took complete advantage of. His use of deception to mislead investigators, his family in their last moments, and his lack of empathy or remorse further characterized his method of selecting how to remove his family from his life permanently through the exploitation of their family dynamic. Next question posed by viewers. How did the case lead to Chris being the main suspect in his family's disappearance? Referring to his crime and the use of investigative psychology, specifically crime scene profiling, the last location where Shannon and the children were seen was at the Watts' residence. The police had noticed that nothing of value was taken, the home was left at a state of cleanliness, and everything was in perfect order. The daughters had their favorite blankets missing, as Chris stated that the girls never leave home without them, and Shannon's phone, her lifeline for work, was still at home. This helped guide the officials to a reasonable conclusion that foul play was not a factor to consider, and instead direct their attention to the relationship between Chris and Shannon. The questions began to be about the inner workings of their marriage, and whether there are signs of extramarital conduct or complete desertion due to irreconcilable differences. This led to the use of polygraph testing to find out more of the truth of what happened to their disappearance. The next question posed by viewers. What charges were brought against Watts, and what was his justification for the crime? Chris Watts was charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, including the unlawful termination of a pregnancy in his unborn child. He pleaded part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. His confession contained statements that he killed Shannon in a fit of rage after witnessing her strangling her daughters. However, he later admitted to murdering all three of them and disposing of their bodies at a nearby oil site where he worked. Next question posed by viewers. Where is Chris Watts now? Well, he is in the Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin, which is a maximum security prison. He was transferred there from Colorado due to the infamy he got from his case. It caused him to be in danger from potential threats. This concludes our episode of Celsius, where we deal with cold, hard facts. Thank you for listening, and remember, stay frosty out there.